Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
When a person faces doing time at the Del Valle Correctional Facility, those individuals become a part of a growing problem in Austin and Travis County and our nation. And that problem is overcrowding of the American prison system. Hello, I'm Carl Gronberg, pastor of Gethsemane Lutheran and host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Only 1 year ago, Travis County's correctional system processed about 600 inmates daily. 1,600. Today that figure has ballooned to 2,200. And even more frightening is the fact that a large number, approximately 75 to 80% of those persons, are now younger offenders, ranging in ages from their teens to mid-20s. What has happened to our value system? Why are our prisons so crowded? Those are just a few of the questions we'll be asking our guests today. We're going to try to discover in Austin Faith Dialogue how the Travis County Correctional Facility works in the face of a very daunting and difficult task. Joining us today on Austin Faith Dialogue are three people who play an important part in the role at Del Valle Correctional Complex. They are Sergeant John Estrada, who's in charge of the SCAMP and the work release program; Peggy Gross Kilpatrick, who is a counselor with the core program at Del Valle, and also the chaplain at Del Valle, Reverend Tommy McIntosh. To the three of you, thank you for coming to Austin Faith Dialogue and being with us. Tommy, we've seen a lot of changes in Austin and Travis County, and we've seen a change in the population. We talked about a year ago, 1,600 and 2,200. Maybe you give us a little history of what's been going on with Del Valle and the growth of the Del Valle complex.
Well, most of our growth has taken place at the Del Valle location. I know I came to the department in 1984. We had basically one lonely building out at Del Valle and the downtown jail, which was on top of the courthouse. Everybody knew it as the old jail, the one with the bars. So I guess we ranged in a population of around 400, 450. And as you just mentioned, we're at a population now of 2,200. The other day, we came out with stats that said that there's a possibility of an additional 250 by the end of the year on a daily population. So it has done nothing but explode, and it has a lot to do with not only the county sentenced people, but as you know through the paper, individuals who are supposed to be in prison and are at our location. So we're housing state inmates, and so the entire population has exploded, and we're still trying to catch up at this time.
A problem for Austin, Travis County, a problem that's nationwide, and it has to do with who we are as a people. And Peggy, you see young people.
Yes, I do.
What do you, how do you read this situation that Tommy has described to us? What's been happening?
Society seems to be falling apart at the seams. We've lost our value system. Mostly, I think it's the family.
The young people that you see in the core program, we're going to talk later on in the program about the core program, but the young people you see who come there, what is a profile on those individuals who come to the core program?
I am always amazed at the deprivation, emotional, cultural, educational deprivation of these guys. Core program is for men and women, but we only have 2 women at the time right now. My heart just aches when I find the background of these kids. They've been abused. A lot of them have never known a mother's love, much less a father's love. Some of them have never had contact with their fathers, or very, very little contact, and very few positive role models in their lives.
So one of the problems is indeed the family and the problems facing the stress on the family of today. Also, I would imagine the role of drugs in our society.
I think that's a major thing. You know, in some families, it used to be the mother that held the family together. But now the mother is often on drugs and in jail. Some cases we have the whole family on jail. As we
saw this escalating growth in our prison system, And as we said, not only county, Tom, we go back to the days when there was just the one old jail, and then they developed Del Valle and had the one building there, and now we have this large complex at Del Valle. Do I understand right that the population is larger at Del Valle than downtown?
Well, yes it is, because there's more room to expand. But even downtown, which was supposed to be a population of, what, 250, is straining at the seams at about a population of 550. They're double bunk, triple bunk, and but the only place to expand, if you want to say to expand, I guess, it was at Del Valle. I think we have in the neighborhood of around 15 buildings that are at the complex out there. So it's a massive place.
A question facing our state is the question of what do we do? Build more prisons, more buildings, or do we offer some alternative programs? And I don't know that we have an answer for that on Austin Faith Dialogue, but I would like to talk about that because I think people in the community who watch this program are probably asking that same kind of question. Do we go ahead and build more buildings? We did some of that here in Austin and in Travis County. We built a new jail and then we expanded Del Valle, but we still have a growing population and we're double and triple bunked, I hear you saying.
Right.
Then it would seem to me that maybe we want to look at some other possibilities besides having more facilities, more buildings. We might want to look at some other programs. And Sergeant Estrada, isn't that where your program of SCAMP and work release come in? Are those some of the community correctional programs that are alternatives?
They're alternative sentencing. Work release allows the individual to maintain employment in the outside, support his family, almost like a halfway house where they go to work and report back in again. Also, they're required to maintain financial obligations while on work release to the county as well, with court costs, fine payments, general fund, which is a rent payment they have to maintain. Everybody pretty much benefits from the work release program.
How does a person become a part of the work release program? How do they become a part of what you do?
There's two ways. One is for the sentencing judge to commit the individual to the work release program, and the other is, excuse me, for us to administratively, what we call roll over into the program, take them out of general population of the jail and place them in work release. They have to meet certain criteria to be eligible.
Now, how many people do you have in the work release program at Del Valle?
Right now, including the drug and alcohol treatment inmates who maintain jobs also during the day, about 190, just under 200 right now.
And those people would come, be assigned by the judge or rolled over into the program from the general population, and they would spend the evenings and weekends there in work release, is that correct? They go to their job in the morning, then come back in the evening?
Right, right. They go straight to work and straight back. We stay in touch with their employer or their supervisor. We have schedules. They have times that they're allowed to leave and return. If they deviate, they can be taken off the program and put back in a regular jail setting. They have to produce receipts or stubs from their pay to show that they're working the hours that they claim to be working. Most of them pay $5 a day in the general fund. Also, like I said, the court costs and the fine. Any restitution to the victim, a lot of times that will be on the commitment by the judge that we collect restitution for the victim. All that's prorated in payments over the number of weeks they'll be on the program.
What is the goal of work release? What is the reason for having that type of alternative community correction?
I don't think there's much rehabilitation there. I think it's more of the family benefits by the individual maintaining his employment. The courts benefit in that we collect court costs and fines. Our department benefits in that we collect general fund rent payments and other fees. And also, as opposed to having somebody sit and watch TV for 18 hours a day and do absolutely nothing, everybody benefits from this. The inmate himself retains his employment. His family, the department, the taxpayers, everybody pretty much benefits.
There's a consistency then, a continuum that goes on for that type of person. and it gives some stability to the person's life, even though there is a way of saying you've done something that's inappropriate regarding society's laws, but now we want you to kind of keep your family together and keep your job. Is that what I hear you saying?
Exactly. You have to keep in mind, though, that these are lower level security inmates. These are nonviolent, misdemeanor, lower level security. We screen them real close before we let anybody on the program.
If somebody in the community wanted to know more about the work release program, they'd be able to contact you, and you'd be able to reassure them that these are individuals who are seeking to be responsible and pay their debt to society. Is that what?
Sure. The year that I've been in charge of the program, I'm not aware of any incidences that have happened that would cause us to take a second or a hard look at the program. It's been very well run, very clean program.
So you believe in work release, that it is helpful in keeping these people back in the mainstream of life. Is that correct?
It has its place. It definitely has its place.
Would drugs and alcohol be a reason why people would end up, or some of the reasons why people end up in the work release program?
We have a lot of DWIs, a lot. We have an Alka-Sensor machine that we can test them regularly at random. If they come up positive, and it doesn't have to be legally intoxicated, it can just be a trace. They're gone out of the program. They're reclassed at that time. We don't, no second chances on drugs. We randomly urine test some of them. The probation department here in Travis County allows us a certain number of samples weekly, and so we take advantage of that. We call their employers, and so we do job site checks, show up unannounced. There are 4 programs officers that have a caseload of about 35 or so, 35 or 40, and they do telephone verifications, job site checks, talk to the bosses, basically try and stay up on what's going on with their caseload.
I want to come back to you and talk a little bit more about the SCAMP program, so that people watching Austin Faith Dialogue can have a sense of what that program is. But work release sounds like an interesting and a very healthy alternative to having people just sit in jail day after day and disrupt the ongoing part of life. If they're there on a weekend, Tommy, what about, do you have services out there? You as a chaplain, what do you offer the folks in terms of some sort of spiritual direction?
Well, we're trying to basically offer religious opportunities in each of the locations. There in the community corrections, we have a limited amount of things that we can do because of their schedule. But we do 2 nights of activities, and then on Sunday offer the Protestant and Catholic services, and then inside the fence, the I guess you would say the incarcerated folks, we have services on the nighttime schedule, and then on Sunday, wherever we can. A lot of the buildings are not equipped for us to be able to do services on Sunday. And so we're trying to offer that, and then to bring in the clergy from the community. That's been our major focus, to allow individuals of their various faith to have the representative come in. And the latest thing we've been trying to do is one-on-one, match volunteers to do a one-on-one with these young inmates, to do some dialogue with them, some Bible studies, some real strong spiritual growth with them.
What do you find as a chaplain on site there, dear? What do you find are the spiritual needs of the persons who are there?
Well, I believe that the main emotional germ that's out there is anger. There is no doubt that anger and bitterness is the #1 prevailing thing, and so when you leave, you have to make sure that you're not taking that germ with you. And naturally, when you examine that, there's so many who are angry at themselves, angry at God, angry at the family, angry at authority. And so to try to present that the Lord God does love those individuals where they are, and you deal with God's grace, you know, and to really learn about God's grace in an environment that many times cannot stand God's grace. Is obviously.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Tommy, as chaplain, can talk about God's grace, but Sergeant Estrada, you, when you check them, urine sample, check for drugs, there's no grace there. If they break that, they're out of that program. They're back in the general population, correct?
Well,
you have to ask them for accountability, correct?
We have that obligation in the community, certainly.
Exactly. And I think that's a good balance, it seems to me, as a resident in the community, that we offer both of those elements.
Well, part of our program, I think, is strengthened when there is a real strong discipline in the jail. We've seen tremendous results of when there is cooperation with the staff and implementing rules and regulation and provide a real strong structure. And then you can deal with the spiritual elements. But when there is still that freedom to do whatever you want to do and get away with it.
Do your own thing.
Do your own thing.
I think part of the rehabilitation is to learn to be responsible for the consequences of your choices.
Well, Peggy, I was going to come to you. In the core program, I would think the things that Sergeant Estrada has mentioned and Tommy have mentioned as chaplain must also touch upon the core program for you and the people that you see. And how about the core program? Who becomes a part of the core program?
It's young offenders, 17 on up.
Okay,
because of the physical aspects, of course, most of the people are young, below 30. Although we have had some people, 30, 33, 35.
In the core
and we would take anybody who could physically do the program. And the majority of these, well, I'd say 99% of the young men and the women are on probation. This is a condition of probation. So that they come there, it's sort of a diversion program for the probation department. If they quit or they're reclassed for some reason, then that's a violation of the conditions of probation and they get to go back in front of the judge.
I think it'd be interesting for the people watching the program. What is the schedule for the core program? Conditions are there. They're trying to help them become disciplined individuals. Is that correct?
Right. This is just like a basic training for military. And we also have a very extensive educational and counseling program. Any cadet who comes in without his high school diploma, or hers, is automatically placed into a GED program. Now, if they don't have the skills for GED, that they need remedial work, that's provided also. We have a pretty extensive educational staff on the complex to provide this education for all the inmates as well as the community corrections.
You mean they go to classes then?
They go to classes. They go to remedial classes like adult basic skills and GED. Then if a cadet has his high school diploma, he may be trained to tutor these other people in literacy skills, and they're trained according to the Laubach method. Then the cadets who have high school diplomas may participate in a vocational program. Then we also have counseling. We have two major tracks for the counseling program. One is the alcohol drug treatment, and I basically do that part of the program.
Okay, and some of these kids, 17 years old, are alcoholics, is that correct?
Since maybe age 12, 13, 14, using drugs and alcohol very heavily. Yes.
And so you would work with them, as Sergeant Estrada was saying, working with AA. Is that a part of the program in core?
Definitely. The counseling, the group counseling sessions are based on the 12 steps of AA, and we deal a lot with the spirituality part. A lot of these young men and women have a negative experience with religion, and they think of spirituality as being church.
Yes.
We have to redefine the whole idea of spirituality and trash all of their previous notions about it and start over, and I encourage them to start over and nurture their own experience of spirituality, because I think everyone craves, has a longing for something that's of a spiritual nature.
What I want to know is, how did CORE come into existence? Now, I think we mentioned that the community correctional, the work release, has been going for a number of years, John. Didn't you say that? How many years has that been in existence, work release?
Oh, about 15 now.
That's been 15, and you've been in charge over the past year, is that correct?
Right.
All right, now how about CORE, Peggy? How long has that been going?
It was started in the fall of '89
And
by
who
the
started?
sheriff.
By the sheriff.
He's
Okay.
very progressive and willing to try almost anything that he thinks might be successful. So this was a pilot project.
In other words, what you're saying is not simply the goal of getting people and putting them into jail and keeping there. We're talking about trying to help nurture human beings into the fullness of life, or a vision of that type of thing. And that may be kind of a lofty idea, but that's a goal we have, is to help these individuals, these youth, and others to see a vision of life where there's some possibilities in life.
Right.
What time do they get up in the morning? What do they do in core program?
They get up at 4 in the morning.
4 o'clock.
And they have their run.
And they run?
They run in the dark. Then they come back and clean up their bays. They have to, of course, do all the scrubbing of the floors that they do.
They don't complain at all when they do this?
Well, I'm sure they do. They just don't let it be known.
Yeah, that's right.
But they have all of the requirements, such as inspection of their bay. They go to breakfast. They come back. They clean some more. They might do marching and drilling. Then they're off to the activities for the day. If they're not in the alcohol drug treatment program, they're in another track of counseling. We call that living skills. If they're not in counseling program or educational program for that day, they go out on work detail. Now, they save the county thousands of dollars by cleaning up parks and roadways, working at community agencies, helping out painting, repairing, that sort of thing.
Then that helps us take care of one of those statements of, well, these people just sit around and don't do anything.
Exactly.
They're already out there doing
Yes.
things. Is that correct?
Yes. And they come in, say, 2:30, 3 o'clock from their work detail, if they haven't been in class or in group counseling. Then they still have to do their boots. They're always doing their boots. I think that's part of the military discipline. They have activities in the afternoon. They have to do marching and drilling, go to dinner, and then in the evenings, almost every evening, we have a program. A communication class, I teach that for the cadets and their families. We have AA 2 nights a week. 1 night a week, they have homework that I assign from my alcohol drug program. And every night from 6 to 7, they have study hall. They must work on their GED or their literacy, whatever it is they have to study. They have to be studying from 6 to 7. A little bit about the military aspect of the program. I'm not military. I've never been military. And some people, I don't maybe fit in there. And certainly I'm not a drill instructor. But I get to follow behind the drill instructor. Sometimes a cadet will come in and say, I've been yelled at all my life. I don't need this. And I won't use the profanity that sometimes I hear. But I get to interpret for them the purpose for this and how to translate that into their life in the outside world.
And how do you interpret that? What are you trying to tell them?
Well, for instance, we have 2 bays here where they sleep, and the desk officer's desk is right in the lobby, in between the doors. When they come out, they must come out and cut a square corner and report to the desk. And they're marching and saluting, and I remind them that when they get out of corps, they will never have to march again. They will never have to salute. They'll never have to march out and do the sharp corner there. But when you get out in the world, you will have learned to not cut corners with your life. You do it right. You polish your boots. That's a learning for doing it right. And when you get out into the community, you don't cut corners. You don't cheat just a little bit on your wife. You don't lie just a little bit. You don't steal just a little bit. You don't cut corners. And when they come in upset over being dressed out by the drill instructor, yelled at, motivated, we have a whole new definition, a meaning for the word motivation. It may mean crawling to the fence and back or duck walking. Then I help them learn how to deal with stress, cold, sober, perhaps for the first time in their lives.
When you talk about dealing with stress, cold, sober, you're talking about without alcohol, without drugs, without tobacco?
Exactly.
Any of those addictive type things. Tell me, how does your chaplaincy role fit in with Peggy and the core program? Do you also relate to these teenagers, basically? It's like having a youth group in a parish, I think. Huh?
Well, we just recently had a breakthrough, I think, with them. We've been trying to plug into the system, and Peggy's helped me with trying to establish a program there because of the schedule has been difficult. But we've been able to bring in some innovative ministry opportunities. We just recently had a ministry team by one of our volunteers, Ivan Jameson, with the Texans Do Care, that dealt with God's love and talking about cutting corners, the facing God and the issues with God's love, but and God's mercy and God's grace, but in daily living. And so we're trying to bring in some individuals that can understand what these inmates are going through in this particular setting and can bring the right ministry to them. And then to try to follow up, the other thing is to encourage churches to make contact with these individuals now, so that when they get out, they'll bring them into their local church and be able to give them that support group. And this is one of the greatest need that we have right now, and that is churches identifying with these inmates, both on the inside and outside.
And they can do that by contacting you or Chaplain Fay at Del Valle, contacting you and Chaplain Fay at Travis County downtown.
We want the pastors to come in. I know at times it seems very difficult because they have to be on our clergy list, but we really do want the pastors to visit these inmates.
One last program on this community corrections that I have to say before we wrap up the program, and that has to do with SCAMP. Real quickly, Sergeant Estrada, what is the SCAMP program? You've talked about work release, SCAMP. What do you do in SCAMP program?
SCAMP is a sheriff's confinement alternative for misdemeanor persons. A great deal of it is traffic tickets, and what it is, it's community service, community restitution. We help out the Goodwill stores, the Salvation Army, the food bank, Ecology Action, a lot of the parks and neighborhood centers, community centers. We average about 4,000 hours a month of community service, and this is in lieu of the individual sitting in jail, where they actually go out into the community and they're required to work minimum 16 hours a week doing community service. And they do it, they incorporate into their schedule, their days off, at their convenience. As long as they show up and they work, they stay in good standing.
We want to thank you, the three of you, for being with us. And one of the things we want to say to you is take care of yourselves, because you're doing something very important. And I'd like to call upon all of the community watching Austin Faith Dialogue. I'd like to ask you to give your support to Sergeant John Estrada and the work that he is doing there, and to Chaplain Tommy McIntosh and the work that he's doing there, and also Peggy, to you and the CORE program and the work you're doing, and for discussing some of the alternatives to community corrections here in Travis County. We're grateful for you. You're making an impact upon our community, and we ask that God will continue to bless you in what you're doing. And to all of you, thank you for watching Austin Faith Dialogue, and join us again next week for an edition of us program. Thank you very much, and peace be with you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries